education system to address the needs of today, or else as a nation we're doomed.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very passionate about that one. I mean, if anyone sits with me and converses with me, I believe if you start a house with a good foundation, we won't need to fix a lot of things. Because right now, what you have is, I mean, in most of the setups that I sit with my friends, we talk about the overly obsession with high schools, particularly matric. But now we also are trying to fix many issues in high school, which we could have avoided in primary school. Because my thing is, and I see it in our families, if your mom teaches you or your dad teaches you, you don't do 1, 2, 3, 4 from a very young age. You're not gonna do that. Yes, you're gonna get into teen life and you're gonna test it out and you're gonna do this. But there's principles that if we start them very young, children literally go through their adult life understanding. This is how you do it. And for me, the biggest thing is when you miss doing the reading and the technical skills, because not all the children. I mean, I watched the ad, Nike with Caster Semenya, and I'm thinking about how many kids do we have in schools that could potentially be a Caster Semenya, but because of the way that we don't really pursue sports anymore in our schools, those Caster Semenyas are probably gonna drop out. They're probably in school bored, they're pregnant, or they're doing
drugs and alcohol.
You know what I'm saying? My thing is when we don't have a holistic education system that seeks to recognize that an artistic nKATeko has a chance, and academic Rinae also has a chance. For me, we are missing the point, and you are literally perpetuating again inequality. Because if nKATeko drops out in grade 10, what is she going to do in this country?
Exactly. And the honest truth is this, man. This thing is tough.
It's so emotional.
The honest truth is that the person who might have the solution to this water and drought problem might be sitting in a class in grade 2.
Yes. Yes.
And we don't know it.
Definitely.
They may have the idea and maybe just need some technical support and we can take it further. The problem as leaders, you think that, hey, when you're on top, you have all the answers, and you don't.
You don't.
You need to include and cultivate the things that will bring us the correct answers and solutions.
That's the thing. Because right now, I'm looking at the situation of, as a country, if we're not harnessing these things from a very young age, you understand what I'm saying? Because I learned a lot about the Montessori and the Waldorf. I read a lot on the education system in Finland and how for the first 3 years of the foundation phase, they're not obsessed with assessments. Developing countries like ours are obsessed with assessing children. Do you think children have even attained like the capability of us understanding assessments? But and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, yo guys, if I have children, my children can't be going through this. My children must be homeschooled.
The assessments are actually not made to genuinely evaluate the development. They're there to just plant insecurities at an early age. A spirit of competitiveness.
You just
that is not healthy. That is not healthy. You don't, not everybody is the same.
Yeah.
And not everybody should be assessed the same.
Yeah.
And I know people then start thinking, but then what instrument of measure? There are so many other instruments that we can use, except for this one, which says, you got a 60, you're dumb.
Yeah.
You got a 30, you're dumber.
Yeah.
And what did we do? Because now we're forcing everybody to fit into this one shape. We drop the standard. You can keep the standard where it is. Change the method of assessment. Change the interpretation of how you assess. So I think, look, there's a lot that needs to go into fixing the education system. But to give it a jump start, we impose one educational system in the country. Because then the rich people are not going to want to run away. The middle class people are not going to want to run away. They know that it's the same curriculum. What gets taught on the left gets taught on the right. And you impose standardization measures, where we all progress. Yes. It will bring us to our next
Literally, I'm sitting with like medical doctors that are going to start making so that everything is like NHI, guys.
Have an educational NHI, basically.
Wow, Danny, we are even going to
universal access.
Let's be honest, Danny.
Universal access to the same quality of education. Universal access to the same quality of schools. you are done.
But my thing is, I don't, for instance, with NHI, the reason why, at first I was also like, everyone, like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna do it? It sounds undoable and whatever. And I attended one of the events where the MEC was, and then Dr. Poppy, and she was literally like explaining how it works, and I started reading up on it. But my biggest issue is, in a country like this, South Africa, we can come up with nice policies. But my thing is, have we assessed that we have enough manpower to implement a policy? Do we also evaluate continuously? Because my thing is, even with education, even you go with agriculture, infrastructure, and everything, we will think of the nicest policies. Implementation and post-implementation, which is evaluation for me, those are my biggest
and
issues.
monitoring.
And monitoring, yes.
And besides monitoring, keeping people accountable to this promise and this policy.
So tell us, what is NHI and how do you envision it happening? And realistic.
And how do we take it to education?
Realistic, yes. But let's start with like in medical. Yes.
All right. So NHI basically it's starting as a funding model. We'll say it's a funding model to redistribute healthcare resources because you have about 16% of this population, no one can take it even to 18, that have medical aid. Yeah. And they're showing the majority of those. No, I don't have. I cancelled it. I think it's wrong for me. It's fine. Let's leave it for another day. The time is coming. I think the deadline is June 2020.
Okay, all right.
I'm not sure if it was June 2020 or coming. There'll come a point whereby the decision gets made for everybody. And I think it's important that the government now plays its regulatory role on the sector. You can't have it that South Africa and Namibia, and by the way, Namibia is a duplicate of ours. Yeah, we're married, us and Namibia were married. So we shipped the same system to them, and now they're suffering the same way that we are suffering. I have people who have medical aid, and then when they get certain diseases, certain cancers, and certain whatnot that are expensive, the medical aid it runs out. You've had to take out of pocket payment. What would happen if you didn't have that money for out of pocket payment? Where do you go? I can't remember how many times patients get shipped after the medical aids are exhausted from ICU inside the private sector, and they dump them on the public sector, and all of a sudden it becomes our burden to do. So if we are saying that health is a social good that the government must be custodians of, then we must have rights to access those reserves from medical aid. Because what we then do is that we take the country as one big pool and we risk stratified instead of having how many medical aids, 30 medical aids or whatever, and everybody has their own risk pool and everybody has their own risk assessment. And what they even do is that if you are sick, you will pay a higher premium. Sometimes they're even rejected from joining the medical aid because they can see high when I do here. And these are non-profit companies who are spending a bulk of that money going to administrative costs. And it's not even going to your doctors. It's not going to your doctors, it's not going to your medication, it's not going to the pharmacist, it's not going to anybody there who's actually service-based, who does the actual work. So it's a freaking Ponzi scheme. Sorry, but yeah. It needs to change. There's a role for medical aids in future where we say, this is NHI, it gives the comprehensive package. So in this comprehensive package, you can go to your healthcare provider. We're not going to just limit you to government, because that's what people have been thinking, but now I'm going to be forced to. No. We're going to accredit health institutions. And when health institutions are accredited, you can go to the health institution. And they will then take from what we call a single buyer and single purchaser. So the NHI becomes like a universal medical aid for accredited institutions.
So wait, I want to understand the payments. How does it work with payments now? So if I choose to go to your Mediclinic instead of my home hospital there in Louis, that one, Memorial.
No, but remember, one of the exercises that are happening now is to say we need to get government institutions to standard. But remember, government has an overwhelming, for example, in Limpopo, we have 42 hospitals. And in those 42 hospitals, how many, apart from private, how many private hospitals are there? You know, and if I can tell you the bulk of the resources going to those private hospitals instead of the 42, which are servicing close to 85% of this population, which is largely rural and poor. So you can't have that. It's like having 2 kids and you give one child 2 rands and then you give the other one 50 rands and then you send them to the market and you expect them to bring the same amount of stock. It's impossible. So what you then need to do is then you regularize. And it's going to be implemented sequentially so that we try and minimize the interruptions and this and that. But it's a decision that needs to be made. This is the battle of the century for South Africans. And we are going to win this one.
As South Africans.
Wow.
The people on the ground are going to win it.
I think this has been the most insightful moment for me, because I think if we sit also and we make our community, because I think my other problem is that when the whole NHI came out, like you saw political parties were also fighting. It sounded like, no,
medical aid teams were fighting.
Exactly. All these issues. But for me, when we sit now and we talk about this, because health and education for me are like one of the 2 priority things.
Cornerstones of
the basic rights.
Do you understand?
And the things that shouldn't be a privilege. They're the things that should be a right
but
for
they
everyone.
are a privilege.
That's why it can't be sold. That's why we're saying for those 2, we have universal access systems where we're saying not collapse totally, because people are afraid of this word. Collapse the private sector. No. We regulate and we ensure that there's universal access. We ensure that it is not the depth of your pocket that gives you access to that basic human right.
Personally, do you think our government is going to be able to do this?
I think so. I think that people need to not undermine the power of the government. We've had challenges too. I mean, the whole issues of state capture, this, that. I mean, I've explained to you that we inherited an already crippled system, and in some places where we delayed transformation, we're paying for it now. So don't undermine the fighting spirit and the resilience of our people. What government needs to do now is to say, we're aggressively going to push these policies. Leaders need to be the first ones that lead by example. Take your kids to public schools and get. So you understand that my child does not go through a metal detector, so shouldn't yours. So that when there's violence, it's all a concern for all of us. Not somebody in some Rosebank College in Tonton where they even have their own internal private security. No. It becomes all our concern. That's how you then get active citizens to now participate in solving their problems. The moment you can isolate yourself, and that's what money does. Resources do that. You get a little bit of money, you move from the township where you used to know everybody on the street and the councillor, and you move into an estate where you barely know your neighbors. Never mind whoever is part of your body corporate and all those things. So you are detached from society because you have enough resources to sustain you alone. So while saying, no matter how much resources you have, for those cornerstones of development and basic rights, everybody needs to come in and participate.
Okay. I don't know about you, but I found this to be the most.
Can I close us off with one last question?
Yes,
because I know we could go on forever.
We can.
2 hours.
Oh, 3 hours.
No.
Oh,
let's get back to the crux of the matter. Then Mokumo, I'd like to thank you for being with us today.
Yes.
Maybe we'll invite you again. We'll see how the crowd feels.
You know what I'm saying. I mean, we wanted to come and talk about a lot of things.
We won't be young forever, so we need to think about the future.
Yes.
Here you are now. I want to know, what do you see for South Africa in the future? What do you want it to be? The vision which you envision and want to put into play. And what is your role in it, Mokumo?
Sure. Please.
That's a nice, easy question to swallow but not answer.
She did this. She literally packaged it.
I think that, look, if there's one thing about the African continent and us as Africans, is that we're very resilient people. We're blessed, we're innovative, and we have this amazing ability to adapt even in difficult circumstances. and thrive. So, taking from the African experience in the continent up until a place where we are now, even with so much active resistance from enemies both inside and outside our countries, I can definitely tell you that as a country, we are going to progress. We can progress faster when young professionals come together, when organizations that are clear in thought and they provide thought leadership, not wanting to single organizations out, but organizations like the Black Management Forum, for example, get together and they open up their nets and they take young people and they induct them into this culture of continuously investing in excellence. We can achieve many great things. We can solve the ESCOM problems. We can restart this country. Not even on racial grounds. I mean, the only thing that makes the conversation racial is that inequality. So if somebody was to say, briefly describe the demographics of this country, in vague, not specific, I would say the corporate section is white, it's male, and that's where the riches are. And poverty is almost absolute black. As we would say, these are our African people. And in the majority would be women.
Sure.
And if you are to look at the political leadership, it's old, it's black, and it's well resourced. And unfortunately, there's no direct line linkage with the next coming leaders. That's why they are taking the shape and form of the old leaders. They themselves become either corrupt, they become bought, they become inducted, they become hypnotized, because to join that club, you need to sing a certain anthem. So they're compromised at an earlier age. And that is how you would want to almost look at it. And the African child sits there most of the time leaderless, in a home where there is no immediate role model. Parents that are too preoccupied, and millennials that just love social media and internet too much. They don't read. And one almost always says they drink away the frustrations of reality. So we are a drunk country that is gradually becoming more uneducated, gradually becoming more ignorant, and we are in deep need of decisive leadership. So we need leaders. Young people need to stand up right now and fight for their future. You fight for our brothers and sisters. Your development becomes my concern. Her development becomes my concern. Because if we get into this concept of saying, what is in it for me? What do I get? You go into your job and all you're thinking about is your promotion, your next big paycheck, a bigger house, a bigger car, drinking more expensive alcohol, wearing more expensive clothes, social relevance without significance. That is what we're becoming. And if we need to stop it before we implode. And some people might think that we're far off. But if you look at what happened in Zimbabwe, I speak with a lot of old leaders, and they tell you, you see, when you get used to this thing of being leaderless, you are eroding your base values and your ethics and the moral fiber of society. So what is taboo today, tomorrow becomes normalized and standardized. You know, I mean, I can tell you that we might think that it is an expression of human freedom, but it is not. We're basically passive participants in this orchestrated society. And we're enjoying the music, but we don't get to choose the songs. So
he's dropping some lines, eh?
Yeah, hey.
So that is how I see where we are, you know, and we need strong, decisive leadership. That's what we need from all the sectors, not one person. We don't need a Jesus right now in the context of the person this one person is going to be our supreme savior. We need disciples. We need disciples.
That's true.
In every sector, in the universities, in the hospitals, in the clinics, at the schools, we need disciples of good leadership, custodians of excellence. You know, if you would describe a government employee today, and I'm a government employee, you know, and I believe in excellence. I believe in being innovative and being service driven. But an average person does not believe in a public servant. They think public servants are lazy, they're entitled, they're this, they're that, they don't respect this. And it's not public servants, it's people. Because those people are sampled out of this rotten society that we're creating. So you must fix the environment, you must fix the people, and then after that, we take over government. We can literally be the best country in the world, that I can tell you.
That's so deep. Like, that deserves a round of applause. Eh?
Like it's been broken down, G.
Mr. Like, you know, he's done the things. He's found the parts.
He found the parts. He broke the things down, Rinae.
You know what I'm saying?
I think we should close this off because
I really feel like this has been one of the most interesting people we've had on the show, and I think one of my greatest plea now is just seeing how you can mentor young other people, you know, in your village, in your immediate environment. Because I think it's great that we have someone of his caliber, but it would be so awesome to see the energy being transcended across. You understand what I'm saying? So I really enjoyed this. I mean, I can talk until forever, but thank you so much for watching, and we hope you subscribe, you like, and you just give us your comments and tell us what you want us to talk about. Because you can see in Limpopo we have amazing people. You know, we're gonna keep bringing more because like we also
the forces,
like that,
bruh.
You know, children.
Even us here in the north, bruh.
Children of the soil.
Yes, Rinae, children of the soil.
Yeah, I just stole it from Danny.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us. Until the next episode, we out.